Kral stood in front of the Galactic Empire's council, his scarred face illuminated by the harsh glow of the holographic projections. The room buzzed with the chatter of officials from dozens of alien species, each more impressive than the last, as they discussed the fate of Earth. But Kral's presence cut through the noise like a blade. He was a legend, a war veteran who had survived the most brutal intergalactic wars, a being feared by every species in the galaxy. His voice, low and gravelly, echoed off the cold, metallic walls of the council chamber as he spoke. "You do not understand Earth," Kral said, locking eyes with each council member. "Their women are not like any others. If you do not heed my warning, the cost will be more than your empire can bear." The room fell into an uneasy silence. The alien officials, some with 4 arms, others with elongated necks, shifted uncomfortably in their seats. But Kral didn't flinch. He had seen the aftermath of what happened when arrogant powers underestimated humanity. He had seen it before on countless battlefields. The supreme commander of the empire, a towering creature with 6 eyes and a voice that rattled the very foundations of the room, scoffed. "A veteran's warning is one thing, Kral, but we have our own intelligence on Earth. Their defenses are primitive. Their military is nothing compared to the might of the Galactic Empire." Kral's eyes narrowed. He had fought in wars where entire civilizations had crumbled before the might of the Empire. But Earth had something the Empire could never grasp, the will to fight. And it wasn't just the men. "I've seen what they're capable of," Kral growled, his voice thick with the weight of experience. "You think their armies are weak? You haven't seen what their women can do." A ripple of confusion spread through the council, but Kral continued, undeterred. "They're more than fighters," he added, his tone hardening. "They're warriors, engineers, strategists. The very heart of their resistance is in their women. And I warn you, if you kill them, you will regret it." A murmur ran through the room as some of the more skeptical officials exchanged glances. They had heard of Earth's fierce warriors. Humans were known for their resilience, their sheer determination to survive. But women? They were not considered a serious threat by the Empire. The male soldiers were the ones to fear. But Kral knew better. He had seen it firsthand when a group of Earth's women, ordinary citizens, fought back against the most technologically advanced alien forces he had ever encountered. They had no regard for their own safety. They fought like animals, driven by something far deeper than survival, the instinct to protect. "You speak of primitive tribes and ineffective armies," Kral continued, his voice growing colder. "You've underestimated them. You've never witnessed what happens when they fight for their own. Earth's women are not bound by the same rules you use to control your soldiers. You take them, and you'll find out how far the human spirit will go to protect what it loves." The council members shifted in their seats, some with a look of doubt, others with a quiet unease. They didn't believe him, not yet. But Kral could see it in their eyes. A few knew that when he spoke, it was not the ramblings of a worn-out soldier. It was a warning, one they would soon learn to regret ignoring. The Supreme Commander raised a hand, signaling for quiet. He gave Kral a dismissive glance before turning back to the council. "We'll proceed with the plan as scheduled. The Earth will fall, just like every other planet we've crushed beneath our boot. And once we've taken it, the women will be no different." Kral's heart pounded as he saw the decision being made in front of him. He clenched his fists, but his warning had fallen on deaf ears. They would soon see the truth. The Empire was about to make a catastrophic mistake. And this time, there would be no turning back. The council erupted in approval as Kral turned and stormed out of the chamber, the weight of his failure heavy on his shoulders. He had tried to warn them. They would learn soon enough that when it came to Earth, the women were not to be trifled with. And when that day came, the Galactic Empire would regret every moment they spent underestimating humanity's greatest strength. The sky above Earth burned with the intensity of 1,000 suns as the first wave of the Galactic Empire's fleet descended through the atmosphere. Vast warships, their hulls gleaming with alien technology, blotted out the sky. Below them, Earth's cities braced for impact, unaware of the chaos soon to unfold. The Empire had come to conquer. But what they didn't expect, what no one had expected, was the fury they would awaken. As the first landing craft touched down on Earth's surface, an explosion ripped through the air. The Empire's soldiers, armed with advanced energy rifles and unyielding confidence, scrambled to deploy. But the moment their boots hit the ground, a silent force surged from the shadows, cutting through their ranks like a razor through silk. Valkyries, Earth's female warriors, who had long been trained in secret, emerged from hidden bunkers, their faces hidden beneath high-tech helmets, their bodies cloaked in sleek armor. With precision, they swept through the alien forces with a ferocity that left even the most battle-hardened Empire soldiers reeling. Their weapons, forged from Earth's own ingenuity, hummed with deadly efficiency, ripping through the Empire's defenses. One Valkyrie, leading the charge, moved like a blur. She spun her energy blade in a deadly arc, slicing through a squad of Imperial soldiers before they even realized they were under attack. The alien soldiers fought back, but Earth's warriors were unstoppable. In moments, the battlefield was transformed into a deadly dance of speed and skill, the Valkyries moving with the grace of predators in their prime. Meanwhile, Krull, now a reluctant ally to the Earth resistance, stood in the midst of the chaos, watching in disbelief. He had seen wars waged across countless worlds, but never had he witnessed such raw power. The women of Earth fought like cornered animals, wild, relentless, and unstoppable. Their very presence seemed to turn the tide of battle, as if the galaxy itself feared the wrath they unleashed. "This is impossible," Krull muttered to himself, watching as another wave of soldiers fell before the Valkyries. He had known Earth was dangerous, but he hadn't expected this. The Empire had made a grave mistake underestimating the women of this planet. The Valkyries didn't just fight, they commanded the battlefield. Their tactics were flawless, their speed unmatched. Every strike they made was calculated, every movement executed with deadly precision. They didn't just defend, they struck with the power of a storm. The Empire's forces, caught off guard and overwhelmed by the sheer ferocity of Earth's women, began to retreat. But it wasn't just their military prowess that set them apart. It was their drive. The Valkyries fought not just for survival, but for something far deeper, a bond to their people, to their homes, and to each other. They weren't soldiers of a distant empire. They were daughters, mothers, and sisters, fighting for their future. Ambassador Eva Hayes, who had been overseeing the diplomacy with the Empire, now found herself thrust into the heart of the conflict. She had spent her life navigating the delicate webs of intergalactic politics, but today, she was a witness to humanity's true power. Watching the Valkyries fight with unrelenting force, Eva felt a surge of pride and a terrifying realization that the Empire's might was no match for the heart of Earth's people. As the first day of battle drew to a close, the Empire's forces were in full retreat. What was meant to be a swift invasion had turned into a humiliating rout. Earth's women had proven more than capable of defending their planet. They had shattered the myth that Earth was defenseless. In the command center, the Empire's high-ranking officials were stunned. The Supreme Commander stood at the head of the table, eyes wide with disbelief as reports flooded in from the front lines. How is this possible?" he growled, slamming his fist onto the table. "We've never encountered anything like this. The Earthlings, they've turned the tide." One of the commanders, a younger officer, tried to explain. "Sir, these women are more than just fighters. They're warriors. They've outclassed us at every turn. We can't keep up." The Supreme Commander, his face twisted with frustration, stared at the holomap, now displaying the scattered remnants of his fleet across Earth's surface. He had underestimated them. He had underestimated Earth. "They're not just fighting to survive," Krull said, stepping forward. "They're fighting because they've always known what's worth protecting. And when you threaten what they love, they don't stop. They don't give up. This isn't a battle anymore. It's a reckoning." As the council watched, a single report flashed across the screen. Valkyries continue to advance. Empire forces in full retreat. The Supreme Commander's face darkened. his hand trembling as he reached for a communication device. Initiate Phase 2. We're not leaving until we break them. But as he spoke, another transmission arrived. This one from a higher authority. The Emperor had spoken. Cease the assault, the Emperor's voice echoed through the chamber, his tone cold and final. We will regroup, and we will return. But not today. The Emperor had seen enough. Earth's women had proven themselves formidable, but the war was far from over. The Empire would learn from this defeat, and when they returned, they would crush Earth once and for all. But Krall knew something the Empire did not. This wasn't just a battle lost. This was the beginning of a war that would change the galaxy forever. As the fleet withdrew, the Valkyries stood victorious. The women of Earth had fought not just for survival, but to send a message. Never underestimate them again. Kill the women and you'll break the spirit of Earth, Krall had warned. The Galactic Empire didn't listen, and now they were paying the price. The Empire's forces had withdrawn for now, but the cost of their retreat was already apparent. As the Empire regrouped, the Octari, the Empire's brutal dark allies, moved in. Led by General Zarek, the Octari had one goal: to strike at Earth's heart, to crush what the Empire could not. And they were willing to use every savage tactic at their disposal. Zarek's fleet arrived in the dead of night, a dark cloud blotting out the stars as the Octari descended upon Earth's eastern hemisphere. Unlike the Empire, the Octari were merciless. They didn't care about diplomacy or saving face. They came to break, to dominate, to burn Earth's resistance to the ground. Krall stood on the ground below, his sharp eyes scanning the horizon as the first wave of Octari soldiers stormed the planet. He knew exactly what was coming. He had fought alongside the Octari before, witnessed their terrifying tactics firsthand. They didn't fight to win, they fought to annihilate. The Octari landed with ruthless precision, their heavy, armored bodies barely visible against the smoke-filled sky. Their weapons were designed for one thing only: total destruction. They moved swiftly, cutting down any resistance they encountered, tearing apart cities with unrelenting force. But it wasn't just their military tactics that terrified Krall. It was their target. Where are they going? Krall muttered to himself as he watched the Octari forces march toward a civilian area, specifically one known for its high population of women and children. He knew what that meant. The Octari didn't just want to crush Earth's military. They wanted to break their spirit. They knew Earth's women were central to the planet's resilience. If they could destroy that, they would destroy Earth from within. Krall's heart sank. He had warned them. And now it was too late. The Octari were slaughtering civilians, targeting the women with brutal efficiency. He couldn't watch any longer. He had to act. Without hesitation, Krall sprinted toward the city, his combat instincts kicking in. He knew what needed to be done. Earth's women were its strength. If he couldn't save them, Earth would fall, not just to the Empire or the Octari, but to the weight of its own despair. The Valkyries were already in action, but the Octari were overwhelming. Their soldiers cut through Earth's defenses with terrifying speed, their alien technology tearing apart everything in its path. Earth's warriors, no matter how skilled, were struggling to keep up. And with every woman lost, Earth's resolve weakened. Krall fought his way through the chaos, cutting down Octari soldiers left and right. He was fast, relentless, his every movement a testament to years of hard-fought experience. But he knew, deep down, this wouldn't be enough. This wasn't a battle he could win with mere strength. He reached a makeshift command center where the remaining Valkyries had set up a perimeter. Eva Hayes, Earth's ambassador and now the leader of the resistance, was there, coordinating the next phase of Earth's defense. Her face was grim, the weight of leadership bearing down on her shoulders. "They're targeting the women," Krall said, his voice low and urgent. "The Octari won't stop until they've broken them." Eva didn't hesitate. "Then we won't let them have them." The Valkyries had always been Earth's most dangerous weapon, but they were not enough. Not against the Octari. Eva knew it, Krall knew it. The Empire had made the mistake of thinking Earth's women were just fighters. They were much more than that. And now, the galaxy would learn that lesson the hard way. With the Octari closing in, Earth's defenses had to adapt and fast. The Valkyries, though fierce and strong, were not enough to turn the tide alone. Krall could see that the Empire's underestimation had left the Resistance vulnerable, and the Octari's brutal assault was showing no mercy. But there was a fire in Eva's eyes, an unyielding determination that would not bend, not break. Krall could feel it too. Earth would fight not just for survival, but for a chance to prove to the galaxy what it had been too blind to see. Earth's women were a force that could not be contained, not by the Octari, and certainly not by the Empire. As Krall and Eva locked eyes, they knew one thing for certain. Earth's struggle had just begun, and no matter the cost, they would fight to protect it. Because if the Octari thought they could break Earth's spirit, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. The sound of the Octari war drums echoed across the battlefield, a deep, reverberating thrum that seemed to shake the very ground beneath Krall's feet. His eyes scanned the horizon, watching as the Octari forces amassed in the distance. The time for subtlety was over. Earth's resistance had to act, and it had to act fast. If they didn't, Earth would fall, not from the might of the Empire, but from the sheer brutality of the Octari's unrelenting war tactics. "We're losing ground," Krall muttered under his breath. His gaze focused on the advancing Octari troops. The dark, hulking figures of their soldiers moved in perfect formation, a terrifying sight. They weren't here to negotiate. They weren't here to conquer. The Octari came to burn Earth to its core. "We won't let them," Eva Hayes replied sharply, stepping up beside him. The fire in her eyes hadn't dimmed since the first day of the invasion. If anything, the weight of leadership had only made her stronger. Eva had become more than an ambassador. She was Earth's voice on the battlefield, a symbol of defiance against the Empire and the Octari. In a matter of days, she had grown into a tactician, leading Earth's forces with a determination that inspired those around her. But even she knew the battle was slipping out of their control. The Valkyries, Earth's fiercest warriors, had fought tirelessly, but the Octari were different. They didn't fight to win, they fought to erase. And that made them infinitely more dangerous. "What do we do now?" Eva asked, her voice strained but resolute. Krall turned toward her, his expression grim. "We fight back. But we need something more than strength. We need strategy. We need to take the fight to them." Eva's mind raced. She knew Earth's warriors were fierce, but they were facing an enemy unlike any other. The Octari had no mercy, no honor. They were predators, and Earth's women, in their eyes, were nothing more than prey. "If we're going to stand a chance, we need to hit them where it hurts," Eva said, her voice low but firm. "We've got one advantage. The Octari think we're weak. Let's make them think they're wrong." Krall didn't smile, but there was a flicker of approval in his eyes. "You've got it. We take the fight to their command center. If we can disrupt their leadership, we can break their momentum." Eva nodded, already turning to relay orders. Krall watched her go, a sense of respect growing within him. This was no longer just about survival. It was about shifting the war, changing the very way the galaxy saw Earth. As the Valkyries prepared for their next strike, Krall couldn't shake the feeling that something far larger than a simple battle was unfolding. Earth had already proven it could hold its ground against the Empire. But the Octari were something else entirely. To defeat them, Earth needed more than just brute force. It needed unity. It needed something to remind the galaxy of why Earth was worth saving. The plan was set. Under cover of darkness, the Valkyries would infiltrate the Octari command center. The city was under heavy guard, but Earth's soldiers had become masters of stealth. They would strike fast, take out key targets, and cripple the Octari's chain of command. If they succeeded, it could turn the tide of the war. The night before the mission, Krall found himself standing on a rooftop overlooking the battlefield. The fires of war burned bright on the horizon, and the faint sound of explosions echoed in the distance. Earth's forces were scattered, retreating into pockets of resistance, but they hadn't given up. Not yet. The wind was cool against his skin, but Krall felt the weight of the years pressing on him. He had fought in wars for as long as he could remember, but nothing had felt quite like this. The stakes were higher now. If Earth fell, there would be no coming back. If they lost this fight, everything, their freedom, their future, the lives of every person on the planet, would be gone. A hand rested on his shoulder, pulling him from his thoughts. He turned to find Eva standing beside him, her eyes as sharp as ever, but something softer in her expression. "We're ready," she said, her voice steady. Crawl didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked out at the battlefield once more, seeing it through her eyes. Earth had been on the brink of destruction since the first alien ship had entered their atmosphere. But now, it was no longer just about survival. It was about proving to the galaxy that Earth had the strength to fight back, that they would not be cowed, that they would not be broken. "It's time," Crawl finally said, turning toward Eva. "Let's finish this." The Valkyries moved quickly, blending into the shadows, as they made their way to the Octari Command Center. The tension was palpable. Every step brought them closer to their target, but the risk was enormous. If they were discovered, it would be their end. But if they succeeded, they could deal a devastating blow to the Octari, one that would make them rethink their plans for Earth. As the team moved in, Crawl couldn't help but feel the weight of their responsibility. This wasn't just a raid. This was a statement. The Octari had underestimated Earth's women, and they would pay for that mistake. The infiltrators slipped into the heart of the Octari stronghold with stealth and precision. The battle for Earth had just shifted. With the right strike, they could bring the Empire and the Octari to their knees. And Crawl had no intention of letting Earth go down without a fight. The galaxy had never seen anything like this. Earth's resistance was growing stronger with each passing day, and the Empire was no longer underestimating the planet's potential. They had seen the Valkyries, Earth's fierce warriors, tear through their forces with relentless precision. They had watched the Octari fail to break the human spirit. Now, the Empire was ready to hit back harder than ever before. The first signs of the Empire's retaliation came from the sky. A fleet of warships, more advanced and more numerous than anything Earth had ever seen, descending upon the planet. They weren't here for a show of force. This time, they came to finish what they had started. Eva Hayes stood in the command center, the walls of the underground base humming with activity. The data streams flickered with updates as Earth's military tracked the incoming fleet. The calm before the storm was deafening, but Eva remained composed. She had seen too much, fought too hard, to show any sign of weakness now. "They're coming in fast," Crawl said, his voice grave as he scanned the holographic map. The readings indicated a full-scale assault, the kind that Earth had only faced in the most desperate of situations. The Empire wasn't pulling any punches this time. "We've got one chance," Eva said, her eyes hardening. "We have to strike first. We can't let them land." Crawl nodded, understanding the stakes. Earth's defenses had been pushed to their limits, and the Empire's new warships were overwhelming. But Eva had a plan, a risky, high-stakes mission that could either cripple the Empire's assault or get them all killed. She wasn't sure which outcome was more likely. "We can't let them get a foothold," Crawl repeated, his voice low. "We'll take out their command center." The plan was set. Eva, Crawl, and the Valkyries would lead a daring assault on the Empire's flagship, the heart of their fleet. If they could disable its command systems and cripple the ships coordinating the attack, the entire invasion force could be thrown into chaos. But they would need to strike fast, and they would need to hit hard. The Valkyries readied their weapons, preparing for the most dangerous mission Earth had ever undertaken. As they boarded their ships, the tension was palpable. There was no room for error. The fate of the planet rested on their shoulders. As the ships soared into the sky, Eva's mind raced. Earth's military was strong, but they were still outmatched by the might of the Empire's fleet. If they failed, they would lose everything. But failure was not an option. Earth had already proven it could fight back, and now they had to prove they could win. The assault began in the dead of night, the ships cutting through the atmosphere as they approached the Empire's flagship. The tension was thick, the quiet hum of the engines the only sound. Eva's heart pounded in her chest as she looked at the faces of the Valkyries beside her, warriors, soldiers, fighters, each one ready to give everything for Earth's survival. The first wave of fighters engaged the Empire's outer defenses, drawing fire and causing enough confusion to allow Eva and Krall's team to slip past undetected. They were making progress, but the Empire was quick to adapt. The flagship's defenses powered up, and the battle in the skies intensified. As they boarded the flagship, the Valkyries fought with a ferocity that surprised even the Empire. Each soldier they took down was a victory. Each breach of the enemy lines a step closer to crippling the Empire's forces. But with each victory came more resistance. The Empire had prepared for this moment, and they were determined to stop Earth at any cost. Eva's team reached the command center, but as they breached the doors, they were met with a surprise. A secondary defense system designed to protect the heart of the flagship. The battle became a frantic struggle as the Valkyries fought tooth and nail to disable the system. "Keep pushing forward," Eva yelled over the chaos, her voice unwavering. "We have to disable the command center, now." Krall was already at the controls, his experienced hands flying over the console as he worked to hack into the Empire systems. Every second felt like an eternity as the countdown to their failure, or success, ticked away. "We're in," Krall finally said, his voice almost a whisper as he disabled the last line of defense. The flagship's systems began to falter, the once mighty ship, now a sitting target. As the Empire's command center lost its power, the invasion force above began to disintegrate. The fleet, without direction or coordination, became disorganized, vulnerable. Earth's victory was not guaranteed, but for the first time since the war began, the Empire was reeling. They had struck back with all their might, and Earth had stood firm. But the battle was far from over. The Empire would regroup. They would come again, and Earth would be ready. The final strike had come. Earth had fought valiantly, but the Empire had regrouped, and now the full might of their forces bore down on the planet. The warships in orbit were a deadly sight, their massive silhouettes blotting out the sun. This was no longer just an invasion. It was the last attempt to crush Earth once and for all. Krall stood in the command center alongside Eva Hayes, their faces grim as they watched the latest intel feed. The Empire's fleet was descending upon Earth at full speed, and this time they wouldn't hold back. Every inch of Earth's remaining defenses was being tested to the limit, and still the Empire came. "Is it enough?" Eva asked, her voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. She had led Earth's forces through every battle, every victory, but this time, the stakes felt too high. The final stand would demand everything, every ounce of strength, every shred of courage. Krall didn't answer immediately. His eyes were fixed on the holographic display showing the approaching enemy forces, their numbers overwhelming. Earth had fought to a stalemate, but now it was clear. This would be the fight that determined their survival. "It has to be enough," Krall said finally, his voice unwavering. "We've got one chance, and we're going to take it." Eva nodded, her expression hardening with resolve. Earth had defied the odds before. The Valkyries had shattered the Empire's belief that humanity was weak, and now they would show the Empire what true desperation and true strength looked like. "They think they can just crush us and leave," Eva said, turning to face Krall. "But we're not just going to lie down and die. We're going to fight until there's nothing left to fight for." Krall could feel the weight of her words. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about sending a message the Empire could not ignore. Earth would not bend. Earth would not break. And no matter how many of their soldiers died, they would never forget what happened here. The Valkyries, Earth's finest warriors, were already assembling for the final assault. They had trained for this moment, fought for it, bled for it. There was no room for fear. There was only the battlefield and their unbreakable bond to one another. "We need to hit them at the heart of their fleet," Krall said, pacing. "We disable their command ship, disrupt their systems, and they'll be left blind. If we can take out their leadership, their forces will fall apart." The plan was simple, but the execution would be anything but. The Empire had fortified its flagship, its center of command, so heavily that even Krall, with all his experience, had doubts. The Valkyries would have to fight through endless waves of enemy soldiers, breach the flagship, and take control before reinforcements arrived. Every minute would be critical. The Empire thinks they have the upper hand, but they don't know what's coming, Crawl continued, his eyes burning with intensity. We'll show them just how wrong they are. With a final, steady breath, Eva turned to the Valkyries. Their faces were resolute, their eyes filled with the kind of fire that had carried them through countless battles. They had been underestimated before, and it was time to make sure the galaxy understood just how wrong that had been. The final battle began at dawn. The first wave of Earth's forces launched into the skies, cutting through the thickening clouds, their warships descending toward the heart of the Empire's fleet. Laser fire streaked across the sky as the Valkyries led the charge, their ships cutting through enemy formations with expert precision. Crawl and Eva, in the thick of the battle, watched as the Valkyries pressed forward. Every strike they made was a message, each one a declaration that Earth would not fall without a fight. The Empire's soldiers fell one by one, their lines crumbling as the Valkyries fought with a ferocity that left no room for doubt. They reached the flagship. The battle had become a blur of flashing weapons and blinding explosions as Earth's warriors boarded the massive ship. Their mission was clear: take the command center, neutralize the enemy leadership, and buy enough time for Earth's remaining forces to finish the job. As Crawl led a group of Valkyries through the dark, labyrinthine corridors of the flagship, the tension was palpable. They fought through waves of resistance, pushing forward with relentless determination. The Empire's defenses were formidable, but they weren't invincible. The final assault on the command center was a brutal clash, a desperate fight to hold onto the one thing that could turn the tide. Crawl's voice rang out through the chaos, directing the Valkyries with military precision. The Empire had underestimated their strength before, and they would do so no longer. In the heart of the flagship, Eva and Crawl stood side by side, watching as the command systems flickered and shut down one by one. The Empire's fleet began to disintegrate, their once pristine formations collapsing into disarray. It was over. The battle for Earth had been won, not with overwhelming force, but with something far more potent: resolve, unity, and the unwavering belief that no matter how dire the odds, Earth's will to survive was stronger than any enemy could fathom. As the last of the Empire's forces were driven from Earth's skies, Crawl allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction. The fight was over, but the war for Earth's future had only just begun. And this time, the galaxy would never forget what it had witnessed.